The Florida Podcast Network, the voice of Florida.
On Techsploration, your trusted tour guides, Craig and David, will explore every corner of Florida for the latest tech and innovations emerging within our communities as an inside look ahead at Florida's future.
Hi, this is episode 21 of Techsploration on the Florida Podcast Network, where we're discovering the tech and innovation spaces thriving under the Florida sun. I'm one of your hosts, Craig.
And I'm Mike, and we're from Clarity Creative Group, an Orlando-based digital marketing agency.
On today's episode, we're going to talk about the madness in crypto and Twitter.
Then, Marco Santana joins us to talk about reporting on the Orlando tech scene.
And we'll end the episode with this week's tech tip from Jennifer Lopez. I love these tech headlines because they're a thread that we've pulled weeks ago, months ago, but I get to bounce it off someone different. Normally it's David in, and we've got Mike in today. We're going to talk about two things that, again, both of which were topics that came up in headlines before, but big things happened. And I want your take, Mike. Crypto, you know I'm into it, been into it for years. The second or third, based on whoever you follow, largest crypto exchange, literally yesterday, we're recording on the 11th of November, filed bankruptcy. FTX, belly up, very bad business practices, leveraging debt against weird made-up assets. Quick, right out of the gate, what are your thoughts? $10 billion possibly lost of users' money, not their money, people's money.
I mean, once again, Larry David was right. He had the Super Bowl commercial, and he didn't get it. He just didn't get crypto. And he was right. So, that's where I'm at. I'm with Larry David on this one.
You're with Larry David, which is ironic because they paid him with real money, even though that might have actually been...
They paid him with users' money, and they're not getting it back.
They paid him with customer money. You have Brady on that. You have Steph Curry. Quite a few people. There's a stadium or an arena named after FTX. Here's the one thing I want to point out, because again, I am someone that dabbles here in this space almost on a daily as my hobby. There's a big difference between FTX and Coinbase, for example. Coinbase is a publicly traded US entity that has to provide a bunch of tax documents. Doesn't mean there's not the variants of the Enrons of 20 years ago and all that, but you have a lot more hoops to jump through when you have SEC filings. FTX didn't have those standards, so they were doing some business practices that ethically, I think anyone in banking, not with the last name Madoff, wouldn't feel very comfortable with. They were borrowing and leveraging on the same thing to multiple people. I think fundamentally, even non-investor folk know you're not supposed to do that. I'm not supposed to get a loan on the collateral on a house and then also get 3 different loans from 3 other people that don't know each other with the same collateral. That's usually not a good practice.
Usually.
Well, if you get caught and you were a 30-something wonderkind, or I've probably pronounced that wrong.
It sounded offensive.
He was the bee's knees. This Sam Feldman or whatever, his nickname was SBF, but I saw a very funny thing that nicknames are for winners, so nobody wants to call him SBF anymore. It's just Sam the Thief. So why does that tie into Twitter? Because I teased that we were going to talk crypto and Twitter. Well, crypto Twitter is a thing, just like sports Twitter is a thing, and SEO Twitter and marketing Twitter. Crypto Twitter became an incredibly toxic place over the last 9 months as things started happening and got real bad this week when this FTX thing went down. But at the same time, the purchase of Twitter by Elon Musk went through in the last couple of weeks. Termination of, I believe, thousands of employees happened. Mm-hmm. And the monetization of the check mark. All this happened in the same couple of days, if you will. I know you have thoughts on this, Mike. I see them bubbling in you. Are you paying $8 for a blue check mark?
No. But I'm not one to care about blue check marks or anything next to the name. I do find the Elon story taking over Twitter to be kind of fascinating, and I find myself drawn to it more than I would expect or care to admit. There's just something so like he's flying by the seat of his pants. Now, maybe he's the wizard that he thinks he is. And
people are calling him Icarus. Some are calling him Icarus, and they're like, when are these feathers going to fall off?
There's enough red meat out there that I think there's people that are arguing they're melting quick in this particular case. I don't know what all to believe, what all is true. All I know is it's like they floated the idea of people who are verified paying $20 to keep the right to be verified. And then when all those people said, it's not worth it enough to us, then it was just kind of like, what was it? A reply to Stephen King? All right, well then maybe you just pay $8 a month.
Maybe just $8.
And then like a week later, that's what's being implemented. And today, I don't know when this got implemented. All I know is this morning, I started getting bombarded with images and tweets and just all this misinformation out there because what happened was they implemented that $8 thing, and then all of the spam and joke accounts paid to get verified.
Instantly paid.
And now there are just a million blue checkmark joke accounts. And I didn't realize how much I relied on that blue check mark to know what I was looking at. It was the short code to know like, okay, I see a blue check mark next to the name. That's the official Twitter account. And that's no longer going to fly. Like I saw a thing. I didn't know what I was looking at first. It was a tweet. It seemed to be from Chiquita Banana talking about overthrowing the Brazilian government. Mm-hmm. And then there was another blue check mark Chiquita Banana account that tweeted out saying, there was a joke account that was verified and it tweeted out an offensive thing about overthrowing the Brazilian government. We haven't overthrown a government since the 50s. And both of those accounts were fake accounts.
Both were fake. This is going to be a problem. And here's why. I was listening to a live Spaces that almost 1 million people listened in on that had Elon and a few heads from Twitter. And they were talking about how important the advertisers are. And boy, they are. In the end, a platform needs that. And boy, some of them are getting burned right now. Some of them are getting burned in a bad way. I've seen a funny image of Super Mario from Nintendo giving the middle finger. That isn't, coming from a blue check mark account. You don't want to see that. And the fact that this feels, and I think you kind of hinted at this, it feels incredibly rushed. That it's just things that were on the mind that now happened. And because he literally is an autonomous leader, because he bought it, he can do those things. While I'm bummed out for the platform, I understand that now, again, it's a thing this guy owns. He can do what he wants. Maybe the total subtext of it is he has some other startup of a better idea, and he really wants that to succeed. I've been hearing about Edgar hit me up about Mastodon. I got to learn about that. I don't know if you've heard of that one, kind of like an open source social network kind of thing. There's so much going on that we felt like today we had to go back to both crypto and Twitter to cover the madness. And I think in a few episodes, we might have to do it again.
It might be about Twitter going the way of FTX if things keep going this way.
I think you could be right, my man. This is an exciting episode. Many of you that have listened for the months and months we've been doing this know we love tech stuff. We, in fact, talk about tech news literally in every episode. There's a little segment in every episode. We just started every couple of episodes doing a little roundup. And we have the pleasure of, for the first time, having literally a technology business reporter, Marco Santana, with us. I'm so grateful. Thanks for joining us, first and foremost.
Look, hey, thanks so much for asking me. I love that you love technology because I do as well, and I've been immersed in it for a while.
That's why this is going to be super fun to jam, because myself and normally David is with us, but today we have Mike, who's been on a previous episode as well. But all three of us and a bunch of other people at our agency are tech enthusiasts, right? And I wonder, right from the gate, I hit with like curiosity. Is that enthusiasm for technology what even made you want to do this? You covered tech for the Orlando Sentinel for 7 years. You built your own Orlando Tech News website. You're doing your own things. How did it start? What kind of stoked the fire?
It's funny because a while back when I first started covering tech, around I'd say 10 years ago, when I was in Des Moines, Iowa, for a publication out there, and I was hired as a business reporter, and I wanted to go to another place. That the only way you get raises in journalism is if you move to another newspaper. So I was ready to advance my career. So they hired me in Des Moines, and after I got the job, they said, "Oh, by the way, you're covering tech." So it's a way to back into it, right? But as soon as they started talking to the people, the entrepreneurs, and seeing the businesses and seeing all these smart people building these really cool things, I really grew to love it very quickly. And that's why when I came to the Atlanta Sentinel in 2014, that was specifically for a tech reporter. So, yeah, man, that's been a fun ride.
No, I think it's so interesting because I don't get, other than this podcast and another podcast I'm on, I don't really get to talk news or to talk kind of current things other than in casual conversation. Whereas Mike, who's been alongside the ride today in another episode, he's got experience literally in news, used to do daytime, daily news. Mike, was it ever any technology stuff in he was the morning kind of drive time person in Port St. Lucie. Did you ever talk tech?
So the audio board for our radio station had pen caps to hold the buttons down. So tech was not high on our radar. That's
Fair
a true
enough.
story, by the way. Like there were like 4 pen caps holding everything in place.
So where Marco gets to talk to people that are at the forefront of what's next, literally like the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, you were holding audio levels, maybe with gum, pen caps, trying to keep it going.
We were on Windows 93. That's where we were.
Marco,
Windows 93, one of the greatest inventions in the world, huh?
well, that first one, the first one I ever got, I'm trying to think, because 95 was a big deal. So I must have had version 3.0 something before that. You said that, and that was in the 90s. You said you kind of started this journey in 2014 in Orlando specifically. You had Des Moines before that. Mm-hmm. And because this is all about Florida tech, what major, and maybe pick only a couple, maybe 2 or 3, what major changes have you seen from 2014 to now? We're talking 8 years going on 9.
Yeah, I think one big thing is there are a lot more, at least in Orlando specifically, there's a lot more collaboration, a lot more understanding that, rising tide. I'm not a cliche guy, but that's one that I think applies for Orlando, because for a very long time, we were a very siloed ecosystem where you had people doing medical tech over here, you had people doing space stuff over here, you had startups over here, you had gaming over here, but there never was that real collaboration, because everyone, from an economic development standpoint, everyone was still kind of relying on Disney and Universal, right? But since that time, I've seen that there's a lot more collaboration. People have learned that what I think was always obvious, like the more people are working together, the more you can push your own ecosystem forward. So that's been a big difference. I'm also seeing a lot of, again, we've had a gaming culture here for a very long time. Electronic Arts moved here in the 90s, and there's been a couple startup companies around here too. But as we see a lot more technology advance, we realize that the skills that used in gaming are the ones that are being used for example, the metaverse. I'm not going too far in the metaverse, but all the things that are creating these new technologies, whether it's simulation for health, whether it's simulation for the military, it's all gaming skills. And I think we're starting to realize that we have this depth in a very important skill set, and that's been exciting to watch.
I like the can of worms you might have just opened, Mike. What do you think? He triggers me in a good way there.
Yeah, I feel like this is my one chance to get a question in before it just dives into the metaverse with Craig's direction. But with the video game industry, like EA Tiburon and all that stuff, I think it was Tiburon that was in Orlando. Did those people that kind of get their start there, did they branch out to the other tech companies, or was it just that tech established a foothold here and the other companies brought people to us?
So I think for a long time, because EA was a destination site, right? But as technology has advanced, EA has become more of a, and the workforce has grown here. EA is more of a stop. I know a lot of people who are doing startups now. I hate to say a lot of people, but there's a good number that did start at EA, building Madden, contributing to these other games, and then they branched off, and now they're doing other types of technology related endeavors. So I think that is, for a while, EA was the place, right? But I think it's kind of flipped on its head a little bit, where while EA's just the depth, right? They have 1,000 employees in Orlando. Just that depth has built, the skill sets around here so that when they do leave, they are able to kind of find somewhere here to stick around and maybe start on a startup or latch onto a tech company who's looking for those gaming skills. And that's only helping the ecosystem. So I think it's a chicken egg kind of thing, right? Where EA was here before gaming was really here. But now that gaming's here, the fact that EA is still here, it's really working together to build this ecosystem in so many ways. I'm really bullish on it, as you can probably tell.
Do you feel like in the next, let's call it 3 to 5, more and more tech jobs are going to be available in Orlando? I know Miami gets a lot of action for what's going on in technology. We had a chance to interview some people not just Miami, but also like Fort Lauderdale area and seeing what's coming there. We haven't really gotten up to Tallahassee yet.
Right.
What are you seeing that might be something interesting right for Central Florida in terms of like opportunities for technology?
The thing is, we have an advantage when it comes to the workforce because UCF is the second largest college in the country behind Arizona, right? So there is a constant churn of people coming out of there. Now, 8 years ago when I got here, there weren't a lot of places for them to stay, and I saw a lot of people leave. They call it I forgot what it's called, the brain drain, right? Where they would learn here, build their skills here, maybe latch on to an internship at EA, but then boom, go to California, Silicon Valley, go to Boston, go to wherever, right? I think there's more of an appetite to stick around here because there are more jobs being available. Now, it's very important, however, to understand this is post-pandemic. As we emerge from the pandemic, we're seeing those trends now. So I can't say definitively. However, from what I'm hearing, there are more companies being started. Companies are growing again, coming back to hiring. Now there is that thing of like when you leave UCF or Rollins College or all the the institutions around here, it's do you have a place to land? I think there is more places to land than there were before. So we're still not Miami. I don't think we'll ever be when it comes to that depth, when it comes to that how big they are. I think we're growing in smart ways. It's just a matter of keeping the momentum going and making sure, again, that whole everyone's pushing the same direction. The workforce is definitely a part of that.
You made a big switch in 2020, leaving the Sentinel and kind of starting your own thing, becoming a small business owner, essentially, which is near and dear to our hearts. That's kind of a thing of how we got to be what we're doing. And I do think that a lot of the listenership, because we put it out and Florida Podcast Network puts it out, happens to be small business owners. So what would you say to them regarding this exciting technology shift, if you will? Is it something, because I've found that some people, and I've had these moments, can be intimidated by technology, or you hear about these big companies coming in and it feels like that squashes opportunity, but I'm not sure that's always true. What do you think?
I think a business that doesn't figure out a way to incorporate technology is leaving money on the table, right? So to speak. I think in 2022, we are in this world of where technology is embedded within anything you can think about. When I left in 2020, I did so because I just didn't think that what we were focusing on was something I wanted to be a part of. Nothing against them, but like I wanted to talk about startups and young companies. But a lot of these young companies are going to win because they're adopting technology a lot quicker than some of their bigger competitors. If you're an entrepreneur out there and you're not incorporating technology, find someone who can help you get over that bridge, get over that hump, because we're not going backwards. Technology is always moving forward. So I don't know if that answers your question completely, but I think that's important for everyone to keep in mind that this is it's very accessible, right? So
I do like the way you said that they're pretty much leaving money on the table. It's not that it's all over, right? There's still going to be a lot of ways to transact, if you will, operate in a wide variety of businesses. But you kind of put it down to the brass tacks of what a small business is trying to do anyway, probably raise revenue or raise profitability, right? And embracing technology might be the way to add on top of some of the things you're doing. What did you choose for, again, anything that relates to OrlandoTechNews.com? I mean, again, that big shift going away from a major newspaper, I think the biggest one in Central Florida, possibly one of the biggest ones in the state. That part I don't know, but you might know that. And you start your own thing. And not that I forgot about it, it will come around just because metaverse happens to be one of the top things on your site. You have a lot of content about that. So what technology do you deploy, and how do you work on a small scale, literally your business, to build up OrlandoTechNews.com?
Well, no, it's funny you asked that because I'm working WordPress, bro.
We love WordPress, Marco.
I think,
believe and love WordPress. It's what we recommend is the best platform for long-term growth,
especially for people like me who aren't coders. I'm not a coder, and I don't, maybe someday I'll hire a coding company to build this on something else. Right now, I'm on WordPress. I'm using as much social media as I can to get the word out. I think if there's a platform out there, you should be on it, period, until it dies. I was on Peach for those 17 seconds that I was around. So I think the reason WordPress works for me anyway, because it's a very simple site once the template is set up, and then it's just drag and drop for the most part. And that's a skill level that I'm at when it comes to building a website. So I think if you have further skills, there are other sites that are out there that would probably benefit you greater than this benefits me. But I think it goes back to what I said, right? The technology is out there. If you are patient enough, if you are willing to experiment a little bit, you can find the website builder, podcast hoster, all that really aligns with what you're trying to do, if that makes sense.
Absolutely. And I think Mike's been a big one for us on our team. He's brought tech to the table, right? I'm the layperson in our office. I'll be upfront about that. Listeners may know, but you said social media, other things. Mike found us like other apps that we could use for audio, for video, that kind of made us more powerful. I know, Mike, you probably had a thought there.
Well, my favorite piece of tech is I have an AI that basically plans my entire day. I just tell it everything that needs to get done. And there's a computer now that's like, hey, it's time to go eat lunch. Hey, it's time to go work on this blog. Right. That's how powerful technology has gotten to, at least in my life, where it basically controls everything I do from 7 a.m. till 5 o'clock at night.
Right.
Marco, do you think that the people that you deal with, regular people, not the people in the tech industry, sure, but do you think regular people who are reading the stories on your site or are just out there in the world, do we have a good understanding of where tech is right now, what it's capable of, and where it's going?
I don't think so, only because it's moving so fast. Like you said, it used to be your stomach told you when to eat, right? But now you're letting the digital world tell you when you should eat. But you're adopting it. You're adopting what works for you. And I think if there are people out there, there are people. The people out there who are slow to adopt, I get it, right? I get the fear factor, especially if you're of a certain generation. I feel very fortunate that I'm 45, so I grew up without tech, emerging into a world of tech. So I know the two kind of the two lifestyles, right? There are also people who build great tech and they're super immersed in everything. And my family's younger than me and they don't get immersed in anything. So, but I think again, it's one of those things where there is a way to optimize your time with some sort of technology. And I think I'm a huge advocate of that. Yes, I'm an advocate of going out and seeing the trees and all that kind of stuff. I don't go to Chicago anymore though for the snow. But other than that, I think, even that can be enhanced by using technology. I think we all have a way to benefit from it. We just have to be open to it, if that makes sense.
No, absolutely. And that openness is hard. I think Mike and I spent some time together quite recently, and we were talking about just that topic. As we get older, it does feel harder sometimes to adopt that new thing. And I see that with my parents' generation or my aunt. You got my parents, they just won't get there with their smartphone. And then my aunt is using phone, tablet, everything, just all the stuff, even though she's older than my parents. So it's really like, can you lock in, right? Can you get your head around what these things are potentially going to help you with? And I waited long enough. I have to touch on your thoughts on the metaverse because Mike joked about it. It's just because I'm into it. Let me give you some context, Marco.
Sure.
I went down a weird rabbit hole of Web3, NFT, crypto, and metaverse starting last April, right? So things got weird and wild. I learned a lot about blockchain. At the same time, big business seemed like it was learning about it. And then some didn't necessarily worry about blockchain and went to this AR, VR, augmented reality, virtual reality place. And for most people, the word metaverse became, dare I say, a joke when Facebook changed their name to Meta.
Yes.
For anyone that maybe isn't there yet, how do you define the metaverse? Literally a reporter in the space. And what do you see coming?
So first I want to address the Facebook thing, because I think that was one of the worst things that could have happened for the metaverse. I'll tell you why, because everybody understood or recognized the name Facebook, right? So as they go, everyone thinks that's how the metaverse is going, and that's not entirely true. The metaverse is, to quickly define, it's a virtual space, right? Virtual meetup space where businesses are starting to throw things that you're seeing, like Louis Vuitton, like selling some products already. There's already revenue being derived from the metaverse. I don't think we're at the metaverse level yet. It's going to take time to get to where the metaverse that I envision happens. In the meantime, there's going to be every step of the way, people are going to say, oh, that's a failure, that's a failure, that's a failure. So then public perception is going to shift around, right? But Craig, you might like this. Whenever I talk about this, the way I clinch it is I say this: look, there are kids right now who are growing up in a world that has never existed without the metaverse. Like, they're coming up, they're knowing what the metaverse is from a very young age. They're going to be living in there. They've already played Roblox and Minecraft and Fortnite, right? Those are mini metaverses, right? Because you're immersed in there. You got currency in there. You have friends in there. And that's how the metaverse is that's the microcosm of what the metaverse could and likely will become. Now, again, I have nieces who are young, and they're going to be 20, 25, have jobs, have income, have never been in a world without the metaverse. So it's going to be natural for them to be they've been doing microtransactions and Roblox all their life. So they're going to be in the metaverse. They're going to visit with friends and play some random game with a virtual soccer ball, right?
It's going to be native to them. It's going to be absolutely inherent. I could make a fair argument that we right now in real time are in a version of the metaverse. We're on a digital application. I'm looking at you. We're talking. I could type and chat. We're not in the same place, right? We're not recording in a studio. I think for me, the metaverse is such an ambiguous term. It can get vilified easily. It can get raised up easily. Mike, do you, as someone that I know you're not as into Web3, crypto, or NFT, do you have a definition that comes to mind for you of the metaverse? Or are you just like, nah, until it's there where I'm tasting it, I don't want it?
Well, it's interesting because Marco's definition of the metaverse is definitely not what I would consider the metaverse. Not saying it's wrong. It's just like, it almost felt like the metaverse light, almost, if you will, of what I have in my head of what they mean by the metaverse. Because I'm thinking back now, well, if Roblox and all those are mini metaverses, well, then World of Warcraft was a couple of years ago. Well, not more than a couple of years ago now. Yeah. But, like we all grew up straddling that line of, I had a rotary phone in my house when we were growing up. My grandparents were the first ones to adopt the internet. That was how I was able to get on board there and just kind of like ride that wave of technology advancements over these past couple decades. But you go back to chat rooms and forums and all these online communities that have been going on, if that is what we consider the metaverse, then that's here to stay. That's not going anywhere. I think if we're talking VR glasses and going into a different world where I'm buying real estate in a computer program, I might be a little bit more
and I
hands up, back away on that one.
I understand that. And I think that that's so interesting to have those worlds crash together because they both can exist and be separate. You can enjoy a gaming experience, for example, on your PC or with a console and never have to put on a pair of glasses. Mm-hmm. But I saw a video from, and I forget who on Twitter put it out, but it wasn't from the official Disney account. It may have been a sub account of theirs that they're working on AR movies. Disney. And
they released one.
It's out? Now, how do you watch it?
They released one with Brie Olson.
Okay. So
I'm sorry.
No, go. I love this. So I didn't think it was out yet.
Yeah, I actually experienced it because I think, so what you did was you took the phone and you put it up to your TV, and in a certain section of the movie, you pan back, and all of a sudden, everything in the TV kind of flows out into your living room, and it was insane. It was amazing. And
I saw video of it. I didn't get to do it.
That's V 1.0.
Correct.
I mean, there's still going to be iterations on it. There's still going to be people like making it better. Brie Olson, God bless her, she had the foresight to say, I want to try this. And she took it to like bigger directors. She's even like, there's bigger directors. If they adopt it, it's going to get more widespread. So to me, that is a good example of like entertainment jumping into it, right? And perhaps foolishly, like the 4 I listed are all gaming, but there's virtual malls already. There's virtual there's virtual retail shops, and when all those start to come together, that's when the metaverse is going to start being what people envision out. And to be clear, there's always iteration in the lead up to something. What it's going to eventually be, I'm not sure, but when we get to that point, it's going to have these virtual malls, these virtual training centers. Is going to have, of course, Roblox if you want to go into
in the training center point, that makes so much sense to us, I think, where we use things like Coursera or Udemy. We're constantly doing learning. We're not the only ones, by the way. That's a massive platform where people, even online college, which I did benefit from. I graduated, I'm dating myself, but I graduated in 2005. I think Mike and I graduated together, so I'm putting us right on that line. We were using online courses back then, and they weren't even brand new then, but they were new-ish. That, to me, is proof of a concept of we are all willing to spend time digitally to do the things we were going to do in real life. Whether that requires a headgear or not, I think is TBD, right? Because I think brands are going to go both ways. I foolishly bought the Facebook Ray-Ban collab thinking it was way more than it was. And when it was really just audio, Marco, they really didn't get there. Google Glass, 10 years ago, just missed. It was too early. Nobody understood it. Yeah. There was no glass. That was very confusing.
Right.
The thing that excites me, and I've talked Mike's ear off about this stuff, is it's a mashup thing. I can't point to one thing, whether it was that I liked the NFT experience or digital ownership or whatever. It's the concept that really piggybacks off what you said. Technology never stops, but and I think this is a fun way to bring in something we spoke about, Mike. Mike brought up a good point to me that it feels like, in his opinion, and I think he kind of won me over with it, that tech, while we were talking about Moore's Law, we were talking about how things just keep going and getting faster, that there are plateaus, it feels like, and we may be in one. And he used video games. Mike, you'll say this better. You were using, and I think Marco is going to be maybe the only person we've ever talked to that can have a perspective on this that's so informed.
Well, the video game example we talked about was the power of the consoles doubling every generation, right? So you had the Nintendo, which was 8-bit, then the Super Nintendo and Genesis, which were 16-bit. Then you had the Sega 32 and then the N64. And it kept doubling. And now it feels like, and admittedly, I'm backed out of the video game sphere. Time comes for us all. And it has it wrecked my video game time.
For the record, not this guy. But anyway, go on.
One day I will be back there, I'm sure. But it feels like before, the idea of playing a Nintendo game on a Super Nintendo, or actually a Super Nintendo game on a Nintendo console, it was impossible from a tech standpoint. It was just not going to happen. But now the latest PlayStation, PS5, all the games are available on both PS4 and PS5. The Xbox ones, I don't even know what the latest Xbox version is. I feel like they just keep adding a letter to the end of it, and they're all just forward and backwards compatible all over the place. So it feels like that is just an example of video games plateauing. And there's some places where it's exponential growth and other places where it's leveled off.
It's really funny. It's funny you say that. I remember way back in the day, and I'd be playing games and playing Legend of Zelda, for example, and that's not about graphics, it's about story. Then Mega Man comes out, and I'm like, oh my god, these graphics are amazing. They're never gonna get better than this, right? And then you go to Super Nintendo, same thing. We're never gonna top these graphics. Boom, 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 all the way down the line. Now we're at PS4, PS5. I would agree with you that from a fidelity standpoint, we're at a very close place where how much better can it get? But I think when it comes to experience standpoint, there is always room for growth, because the smaller you get your storage places, the more you can put on there. And so the more you can, I'm a huge fan of storytelling. So I love role-playing games. So role-playing games to me are the epitome of, if you have room, you can tell any story in the world. You look at, obviously God of War Ragnarok's coming out, a couple of days ago. And that's just a story. built upon a story that was created thousands of years ago, right? But you find a new platform to tell it. So I love that idea behind gaming. I think you are right, however, that we are coming to a plateau. I think gaming is a good example of that. However, the one thing that I always think about is that our minds are not plateauing, right? New people are being created all the time, and they come out, and you don't know what idea, what vision they will have. And that's where I think is exciting. Not to take this in a strange way, but like when I see kind of bad things happen to people, I think to myself, could that have been the person who created the cure for whatever, right? So I think we have to, for the way I approach it is I believe in human beings' ability to evolve from in the mind, where people down the road are going to know stuff that I have no idea about, and I love that. So I think you're right about like the technology potentially plateauing, but I don't think ideas plateau. I don't know. Like I think that's important for me to share because I love technology, but more importantly, I love the entrepreneurs that I've met.
That's a cool perspective, though. That's a cool perspective that the technology or the hardware could plateau, but the thoughts that we have, endless opportunity. And I wanted you to continue on the people that you connect with, those startups, because give us a little context into what kind of gasses you up to talk to startup founders and how you potentially help them with your website.
What gets me excited is when I have a conversation with an entrepreneur and through our interaction, we figure out what the story actually is, right? I said before we came on, I'm the dumb guy who talks to smart people, right? Because I think it is important that I realize that the story is about the people I'm talking to. I love meeting people. I've always loved meeting people. The fact that I get to tell their story is special to me. I take it very seriously because oftentimes when I talk about them, it's going to be the one time the public meets them, right? So there's a lot of responsibility there. What gets me gassed up is a tech, just an entrepreneur in general, right? Who we can kind of work together to figure out what the interesting story is so that I know my readers will have a fun experience reading it and connecting with that person. And, beyond that, it's like AR, AI, all the technologies, all the new technologies, gas me up. I'm going to steal that term, gas me up. So, yeah, there is that. The technology excites me as much as the people that I meet excite me.
And you can have it because I'm stealing from you from earlier. So this is a give and take relationship, I never stop thinking about this stuff, not just because we do the podcast or because my hobby at night became Web3 or whatever the heck this next stuff is. And boy, did that drip in AR, VR. But as a small business owner that happens to help other small business owners with their web presence, for example, which for some people is a big jump forward, right? I think it's so imperative that technology becomes just a part of the conversation. And I think you're a big reason why that becomes more accessible, right? So what do you see being where Orlando Tech News goes in the next, let's call it 3 to 7 years, right? Taking it all the way through potentially the end of the decade.
Oh, look, man, I just had a meeting today with a collaborator that we're talking about becoming partners because I do have plans for the website to be like a more robust operation. Like I want to get to the point where I hire freelancers so I can cover everything I want to cover. I want to get to the point where we're taking the show on the road, right? Going to Tampa, going to the different ecosystems of Florida. I have 8,226 projects going on right now, and it's just a matter of like many of them are OTN related or tech related, and so the goal is to build this up so where people are looking for tech. One of the reasons I launched this was because the local newspaper, and this is not a knock. Look, I worked for them for several years, but they got away from covering startups and young tech companies, and they were more, let's talk about EA and Lockheed Martin, which is fine. And the reason was they were getting a lot of readership, pays the bills, So that's one of the reasons I launched it was to try to tell the story of the smaller companies that weren't maybe getting the proverbial ink, right? Yeah, but like for now, it's like this is what I'm doing, but there are plans, ideas about going to other ecosystems. I mean, I also have a podcast that's called, and I'm not trying to do all promotional stuff, but I have a podcast.
No, I want it. I asked.
So yeah, starting up Florida, I'm going to restart that, and that just goes around the state talking to entrepreneurs about their journey. And the goal is to let those who are coming up understand that it's not easy. That it takes some failures. That's always been my favorite message, and it sounds negative, but it's not. I've always loved it when an entrepreneur would tell me their failure story, not because I'm rubbernecking like the accident, but because like it's good for young entrepreneurs to understand that all you see is news about fundraising and all this hiring and exits and everyone's making money and blah blah blah, but that's a very small percentage of startups that have that. So I've always wanted to establish something where I'm focusing a lot more on the real problems, like the long hours, the strains on marriages, right, and that kind of stuff. And so that's something that I'm kind of building up right now is the Starting Up Florida podcast. So, but yeah, again, I have a lot of irons in the fire. Find me on Twitter, and you'll see me talk about it, all this crap.
Oh hell yeah! I need that handle. I will follow you on Twitter, and we can jam on there. You'll be bored by all my NFT-ness on there, but so to bring it all the way around, what and it may be one of the ones we already covered on, maybe not. What's the latest tech advancement that has you the most excited, or even if maybe it's two that are tied, I'm cool with it. Give me the tippy top of what hypes you up.
I got one for you. And it's funny because when I say this, it's going to sound like it's bad because it cuts into my business, but it doesn't. There's these AI-driven storytellers where if I'm a startup, I can pay a small monthly fee, and have my blog updated at least once a month, twice a month by this AI-generated, like Jasper is the one that I use with one of my clients. Because listen, I believe that PR is needed. I believe that, if you want to tell your story, hire me. I can help you learn it. But as a startup, a lot of times they don't have the resources to do that, to hire anybody. I love that these tools are available to these people. They can use their money in many, many ways besides hiring me or hiring a PR agency. So Jasper is one of the tools that I think is important because, again, it basically could be your content creator without having a staffer, right? And on a more fun side, that's a little too businessy, right? But on a more fun side, like I like these AI image generators, right? Like it's so much fun
Dolly.
To watch, just see what. Look, I would love to see the craziest stuff that people think of. Because the first thing when you go on, the first thing that you think of is like some crazy stuff. You don't think about anything like normal. You're like, let's see let's really test this thing and see how crazy it can get. But again, I love that because it's an advancement of technology. I mean, I'm not sure if you saw, but a couple months ago, like an AI-generated painting won an art show in Colorado.
Yep, I did see
it was like, I think it was Colorado. It's on the western states. My favorite part was like, no, I'm not giving the money back. I won. So it was really bizarre to see it because so a lot of AI is very important, I think, and seeing how it's used. As a gamer, I've known about AI since I was 7, right? So the Goombas on Super Mario Bros., they had AI just to go back and forth, right?
Right. They had their code. They had their goal. That the core of AI, right? It's that code that has a goal to accomplish something, right? Something. And maybe it'll do that to a detriment at some point. Who knows? Right. We've actually had a few AI discussions on this show, and it goes over my head. I'll be honest that a lot of that goes over my head. I tried reading Life 3.0 by Max Tegmark, which is like a deep AI book, and I had to cliff note it.
I'm gonna say sometimes the deep ones are hard. You don't start with the deep ones.
It was dense, guys, but was so cool. And I'll kind of wrap on this note because I think this ties into where we are with even technology and the phrasing of technology. The book was called Life 3.0, and the one thing that stuck with me, that the argument the author was making was that life 1.0 was a being that was unable to change its hardware or software, meaning its body was what it was, like certain animals and its instincts and brain, it was just going to be locked in. So think of maybe certain insects, for example, can't really learn new skills. They're just machines. The Life 2.0 was you couldn't change your hardware, so the body was going to be the way it was, but you could learn anything and everything, like people, right? And some animals. And then he went to Life 3.0 being the ability to change both hardware and software. And that kind of broke my brain in a good way, where I was like, first of all, never thought of Life as a hardware software thing.
Right.
So that kind of was like, okay. And it made me, I think, at least a little more open to trying to understand what the heck that AI conversation even is. We might have to come hit you back to have like an AI chat, or if you're ever down the road, if you're down to do like a tech news roundup episode with us, I think stuff like that would be really fun. Marco, where could people find you? Maybe share your Twitter handle on the episode here. We'll link it as well, but where could people find you? I know OrlandoTechNews.com, I believe, is the URL.
OrlandoTechNews.com is the website, and the Twitter for that is ORL Tech News. But feel free to follow me on my personal, which I got lucky, got my own name, so Marco Santana. I was way back in there, way before Elon bought this thing. Way before Elon bought this, I was an old school guy. And Marco Santana 77, also Orlando Tech News on Instagram. On all socials, I got my name, Marco Santana. So if you search me on any social, I'll be on there. And Orlando Tech News as well, for the most part, on most socials. So
that's incredible. Early to platforms helps you do that. I think I'm early to only one platform that nobody uses. I think it was Hi-Ho, and I was Craig. I was so early.
Like I said, I'm probably still the only user on Peach. So we're all.
I love it, man. I can't thank you enough for jamming with us on all things Florida tech, specifically Orlando tech. Check out OrlandoTechNews.com. I'm loving it already. Found out about it because we were going to have you on, and now it's going to be a place.
And stay tuned as well. Stay tuned. There's big things coming for Orlando Tech News.
I love it. I love it. Thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you, Mike. Thank you, Craig. Appreciate it, guys.
Hi, I'm JLo from Jalapeño Digital, and my tech tip is to download the Plan to Eat app. If you are a cook or enjoy cooking or have a large family, the Plan to Eat app helps you organize all of your recipes, put them into a schedule, create shopping lists, and can even send those recipes and lists out to Instacart, Walmart, or any other grocery delivery service. I use it every Friday so that I can plan meals and have all groceries delivered on Monday. It's amazing.
Thanks, Jennifer, for that tip. You can listen to our full conversation with Jennifer in episode 19. For details and show notes about today's show, go to FloridaPodcastNetwork.com. And we want our community of Florida enthusiasts to grow. So join in with our super fans, the FPN Insiders of Facebook, Clubhouse, and Good Pods. Just search for FPN Insiders. And of course, you can find us anytime at iwantclarity.com.
Be sure to visit all the great shows on Florida Podcast Network. You'll find them at FloridaPodcastNetwork.com. And as always, keep your electric eye on me, babe. Put your ray gun to my head. Press your space face close to mine, love. Freak out in a moon age daydream. Oh, yeah.
That was an upsetting way to end the day.